Hello, healed listeners. I'm Robin Denton, and I am here with Dr. Kristy Harville today. And I'm super excited to have her on the show because she has such a great story and has so many great tips. She is a chiropractor and she is also a practitioner of nutrition response testing. So she's going to tell us all about that. She's from New York, now is a Florida girl, has been in natural health for 18 years, and her business is called Health by Design. She has a podcast called The Weird Works. So you're going to have to tell us a little bit about that weird.
No
We all
problem.
know we all know a little weird is good. And on her website, which is Health by Design, you can find some blogs, recipes. She's got immune boosting secrets, a video, and some resources there. And we know we all need that right now. And an ebook that's free on there. So, welcome, Dr. Kristy. You go by Dr. Kristy, don't you?
I do. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, well, thanks for being here. So, one thing that I love that Dr. Kristy and I were talking about right before we started recording the show is that she said that she likes to empower her patients. Her patients are empowered. So, I want you, as we do this interview today, I really want you listeners to be thinking about what resonates with you that she says and how her story can empower you to have your own health success story. That is why we're both here. That's our goal. And that's why we both do what we do. So be listening for that. Okay, so let's get started. When you were younger, um, was your health, did you always struggle with your health, or was that something that um, came on as you became an adult or grew up or
Right. Well, I mean, I'm pretty healthy kid. The run-of-the-mill colds, I did have strep throat and ear infections on the regular, and we didn't know about alternative medicine. My parents just trusted the doctors like most people. And so we were given antibiotics on the regular. I didn't tell you this earlier. I did have kidney stones. That was later in life, like in high school and undergrad. But yeah, it was more college age when my health started to deteriorate. And it did take me by surprise. Yeah.
so what how did your health issues start?
Sure. So probably starting in like middle school, high school, I started having abdominal pain regularly, and it started, increasing in intensity. And my parents started on a journey of just kind of bouncing me around from specialist to specialist and, getting blood work, x-rays, maybe some abdominal ultrasounds. At one point they did some kind of like IVP, which is a specialized exam for your kidneys, which involves like radioactive contrast. All the while, like the test just kept getting more invasive with more side effects and a little bit more ridiculous. And they treated the symptoms of pain. Nobody knew where it was coming from. It was trial and error and, wait and see and guesswork kind of a deal. And I was the one that kind of finally put it together that it was more like monthly with my menstrual cycle. So ultimately we finally at least got to the right specialist, the right body part, the right region. And that wasn't a quick diagnosis either, because they did the same, treated with pain medication and muscle spasm medications and birth control pills for years. And finally, the doc was like, well, you're not responding to anything. I think you have this thing called endometriosis. He said the only thing is like the only way we can diagnose this is to open you up and do exploratory surgery. And I was like, that sounds intense. But like I said, like we didn't know any better. Parents were like, trust the doctor. We wanted to end the pain because it was literally interfering with my studies and my well-being and my social life and interactions and everything like that. So we did the surgery, ultimately did get diagnosed with endometriosis. But even with that, if any of the listeners have that, that's not an awesome place either. There's not a quick fix for it. They still don't really know what causes it. There's some more research now than there was when I was a 17-year-old kid, but they do surgery. They remove the lesions that are causing pain, and they're inflaming and bleeding internally every month in places where they're not supposed to be. And then they always told me that my best bet to have the longest recovery and be symptom free after every surgery was to also have a hormone therapy called Lupron. And Lupron actually shuts your ovaries down and puts you through menopause. So I did 3 laparoscopic surgeries and 2 rounds of Lupron. So at the age of 42, I've been through menopause twice.
And have regular menstrual cycles now.
Yeah, now today I'm off of all of that stuff. No more surgery, no more pain meds, no more hormones, nothing. But yeah, it was traumatic back then. And what I was sharing with Robin was that, now of course it's a blessing in disguise, I like to say. Back then it was like world shaking because I was studying to become a medical doctor. And the phrase I always say is that the very field that I was studying to become a part of was failing me personally. And I kind of had to do a gut check and say, like, does this field suit me? Like, does this make sense? If this is all there is to health and well-being, do I want to study that? And also what's funny is when you are studying to become a doctor, everybody starts telling you all their health woes and how they've been wrong by the medical world. And I was just like, okay, this is crazy. But I ended up having to take a hiatus from my medical studies to go through menopause and with the side effects of that medication. Like, I was so unwell on the meds that I had to call my parents one day and be like, I need to come home. I can't continue. So that was pretty devastating because I'm a go-getter. I'm not a quitter by any means. And so the blessing in disguise is that when I was home, I got to really kind of sit and get quiet and think about, like, what does health really mean to me? Where does it come from? Is this traditional medicine the right way? So I started studying ways to heal my own body, but also how to practice medicine. And I looked at some alternative things. I was sharing with Robin, I looked at naturopathic school back then. They didn't have the flexibility to practice wherever they wanted. So that was kind of a deterrent. But I always was really resonating with nutrition and herbs, that kind of medicine. And I kind of just stumbled on the chiropractic college. People often ask me, like, did you become a chiropractor because, like, you were really inspired by your chiropractor growing up? And I'm like, no, not really. In fact, my chiropractor would just treat my pain and then told me that I would be sore after the adjustment and then I should go home and take Tylenol. And I was just like, what do I need you for? I could have just taken the Tylenol. So unfortunately, I wasn't really inspired by that. But, chiropractic was in my backyard. The New York Chiropractic College where I went was like 8 miles north of where I grew up. And so I really learned from them the philosophy that I practice by now and that I empower other people is that your body was intelligently designed to heal, and real health comes from the inside out. And I was like, that's what I believe in. That's what I want to study. So that's how I started my journey.
I love that. I want to know because a lot of our listeners are struggling with their own health. So at your lowest point, when you had to go on a hiatus from schooling, like, what was going on with you? Like, how bad was it?
Yeah, I mean, it's defeat, like I said. And I don't know for the listeners, probably you've all been to that place where, like, if they don't know what's wrong with you and you've gone through all these tests and you've been everywhere and it doesn't show up in a traditional blood test or it doesn't show up on diagnostic imaging, it kind of doesn't exist to the doctors. And so they then tell you, you must be depressed. It must be all in your mind. And I'm like, physically, clearly, like, there's something wrong. Like, I wouldn't just throw in the towel. So yeah, I mean, it feels like defeat for sure. And then of course, the not knowing. There's something, I didn't know this back then, but I know it now after being on the other side and after helping a lot of patients through similar things. Is like, there's something that goes through a body and in your mind when you become a patient. And I don't want to say a victim mentality, but it is a little bit of that because your whole world is shaken. You lose your footing. you don't have confidence in your body to perform. And suddenly, like that lack of confidence, there's a lot of fear with that. Like, is this as good as it's always going to get? Am I going to deal with this forever? What does my future look like? Right. So it just makes you question everything.
Yes. And so I'm glad that you said that, because I hear a lot that people who are struggling to get a diagnosis, that their doctors tell them, they actually send them to a therapist to get counseling, or to get, anti-anxiety, anti-depression medicine. They'll say you're depressed.
Right.
And so, and the person innately knows that is not what is wrong, that there is truly something physically going on. And so it's really discouraging for them to hear that. And the other thing I hear so often is, I just want a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of what that diagnosis is,
Yeah.
because there is a large amount of fear associated with the unknown.
Yeah, it's true too. Like, it seems abnormal, like, to want to hear that you finally have a diagnosis, or to hear like there's something wrong, but like at least there would be a reason behind it, other than it's all in your head, or we don't know, or live with it, or take this pill forever. That's unfortunately what people kind of get strung along with.
And their mind even goes to, and mine did when
Yeah.
I was really sick, and I've heard this a lot. People will say, am I going to die? Like, they don't know what's wrong. Like, is it some horrible something that, nobody knows about? So our mind always, I think, can go to the worst place when we let fear take hold.
Agreed. Oh yeah. And right now we're in a fear culture for sure. So we see what's going on with that.
Yes. Yes. Dr. Kristy and I were just talking about how fear can, and all the negativity that is in the news is so harmful to our health, that we have to not just be careful what we're putting in nutritionally, but also in our minds and in our ears.
And in our hearts.
In our hearts. That's right. Okay. So tell me, so you stumbled into a new career,
Yeah.
being a chiropractor. And so where did that take you on your health journey? So like, what did where did you start? Like, as you start learning about this, how did you give us some steps? Like, how did you heal yourself?
Okay. Well, it's just funny. Like, you graduate and you have a degree, and then you go find your little office space and you hang your little shingle up, and you're like, I'm a chiropractor. Yay. So excited to heal some bodies. Like, you think you're going to be like a miracle healer, right? But what do people think of when they think of chiropractic? Pain, neck pain, back pain, headaches. And I was like, well, that's the easy part with chiropractic. But I'm like, where are all these like miracle cases that I heard about that I could help with? I want to help with that. And my patients who came in with neck pain, back pain, headaches also came with like a long symptom list of like all this other things. And I was like, well, gosh, if I'm calling myself a doctor, I feel like I should be able to help them with all of that, not just their pain. And so I guess like really early on, I knew nutrition would be a part of my practice. But even with that, it's confusing. You guys know there's a lot of supplement companies out there. Everybody wanted to sell me and tell me that their product was the best and I should rep for them and be a distributor and carry their products in my office. And it got really like frustrating, because I didn't want to give a pill for a problem. So I say, like, even though my pills are natural, they're nutrients and they're building blocks, you guys can do that yourself. You can get that nutrition prescriptions for nutritional healing or something book that every health food store has. And you can look up headaches and it tells you all the things that you could take. And there's like 42 supplements and herbs. And you're like, okay, do I take all of them? Do I take the first 5? Like, what do I do with this? And so I wasn't really interested in the cookie cutter approach. But then finally, I found this weird muscle testing thing. And that was how I kind of started to crack the code and get to the root of the problem. And the more I learned in practice, the more I applied to my own health. So it was like, as I was healing my own body, I was really like deciding the path for my practice as well. And my patients were getting better. And then, maybe like that 10%, there was always be that 10% of people that wouldn't get well, no matter if you did the exact right treatment and protocol. And then finally with the nutrition response system, we were able to break into that 10% and get to the root of the problem and really like individualized care. So it's just really been fun.
I love that. And this is what I did to get well. When I did nutritional response testing, or I went to a doctor who does nutritional response testing. I didn't do it, but I participated in it. And I myself had been sick for 2 years, had a specialist for every body part, and was well in 3 months and off 20 medications and felt the best ever in my entire life. It was amazing, just like magic. So I really, I love the way you say the weird works. That's Dr. Kristy's podcast. And so I love that because it does seem a little weird. Will you explain a little bit about what the nutritional response testing is?
Sure. Well, the best way that I think I've been able to explain it is that we use muscle testing. So like I'm going to push on your arm. There's nothing invasive about it. And the muscle test is really just a non-invasive way for us to kind of find out where there are imbalances or deficiencies in the body. So like in a typical exam, and there's a video of this, so it's hard to put into words, but on the website, there is a video of what it is in an actual like office visit. But we screen the body, all the different organ systems to find where there's weakness or deficiency. Then once we figure that out, we find the priority, because your body can have a whole bunch of different things and balances going on at the same time, but it's too overwhelming for your body to heal everything at once. So what I love about this is that it's priority based. So if you can get that one root cause handled, a lot of other things will sort out, kind of like a domino effect. So we treat in a priority fashion. But once we determine what the priority area, or think of it as the weakest part of the body is, then we figure out what is stressing out that organ system. So Robin knows this, we have all these test kits in the office, and the test kits have the most common interferences that would prevent your body from healing itself. So those could be foods. So we test for food sensitivities from everything to wheat and gluten, dairy, nuts, the things you would expect, sugar, but things you might not expect too, like eggs and poultry show up all the time. When people are like, I thought those were a perfect protein. I thought that was like the healthiest, lean meat. So what could be going on? We test for immune challenges. So everybody knows what a virus is after 2020 and 2021. But in addition to that, your typical viruses and bacteria, you also could have a yeast overgrowth in the body or a parasite problem. So those are in the test kit as well. And then we have test kits that have environmental toxins like chemicals. So that could be anything from, chlorine and pesticides to including food additives and color and hormones, and the things that might be in your, personal care products, and also heavy metals. And so ultimately, after we do all of that scanning and examination, a nutritional protocol is designed specifically for your individual weaknesses and health challenges. And then what's cool about that is that we can actually monitor your response and your progress. So the patient never has to wonder if this is working for them. A lot of people come to us and they're already on a supplement protocol. And what I find is that, if you're not getting a result, it's kind of hard to continue to put the time and money and effort into a protocol. So a lot of people have DIY'd their health for years, and they try stuff and they're on and off different things, or maybe they aren't on the right thing, or they don't give it enough time to actually see a result, but they usually fall off. And so we can really guide the patient, what's the next layer and how long do you need to be on the supplements and what's the next thing, ultimately to get to the patient to just a wellness or maintenance phase where eventually they're not coming in all the time. We've got the diet pretty well locked in. They know what to eat, where their body's responding the best, what to avoid, as well as how to create a balanced meal plan. And then we just check on them, check up often enough to make sure that they're on the right nutrients. You guys are dynamic. There's different times of the year where your nutritional changes, your nutritional needs change, times when you're more active, times when there's hormone changes, maybe you have a baby, maybe times when you're going to be a higher performer in your training or doing more athletics. There's cold and flu season, there's allergy season, all these things. but we can help you so that you don't have to just be like fall prey to like pill for a problem, treat symptoms, or buy things off the shelf that sound good, not even knowing if your body can do anything with those or if your body likes it.
Yes, because people spend a ton of money on supplements that may just, number one, not even be a good quality of supplement, or may not be what their body's wanting or needs at the time. So I want to just mention here something that you touched on, is that a lot of times people will have numerous symptoms in different areas of their body that can all relate back to an issue with one specific thing. Now, we usually have, when your patients come in, I would imagine they have more than one issue going on, but your body can only handle dealing with one or two of those at a time. And your body knows which one it needs to deal with.
Mhm. Yeah. And if you guys have ever heard that analogy, like peeling back the layers of an onion, that's completely true. That is how your body heals. So sometimes people come in and they're like, oh, I need help with my GI system. Well, the GI system might not be the priority organ. It could be adrenals is a big one. So like 90% of the time I'm dealing with some level of adrenal fatigue, because adrenals is your stress gland. So you produce stress hormones. We're all stressed out of our minds, whether you admit it to yourself or not. It's a fact. You
Get
know,
it?
yeah, I know. Me too. I'm like adrenal for life, but I just accept it.
Yes, I literally just got some adrenal stuff
Yeah.
2 days ago. So yes, we're taking in all these toxins. Our body just cannot process it all fast enough. So
It's true.
okay, so you did, through nutrition response testing, you found out what your body needed. You
Mhm.
got your body what the nutrition it needed. You eliminated some things. Do you want to talk about a little bit about what you might
Yeah.
have to eliminate, what people might need to get rid of?
Yeah, it's interesting because supplements are powerful. You know, we use some really good high quality whole food supplements and botanicals and herbs in the office, but 70% of all of the patient's success, especially long-term ongoing sustainable success, is the diet. So like you can't out supplement the standard American diet at all. You know, the best way to get your nutrition is and always has been and always will be the food you eat. And so learning how to eat. And for me, you know, my problem was a hormonal system. So I can't eat like dairy and animal products, meat that are not organic because they have growth hormones and pesticides and endocrine disruptors in them. You know, getting a lot of the sugar out of the diet, getting inflammatory foods out of the diet. You know, it's been a long learning curve. You know, and I know for the listeners too, it seems overwhelming because you can go Google like, you know, best diet or anti-inflammatory or autoimmune protocol, like GAPS diet. You just don't really know who to listen to. And that's where this nutrition response testing is awesome, because we can really like narrow it in. So I was able to know that like, you know, dairy, sugar, high carb foods, including grain and rice and things that break down into sugar, aren't the best thing for my body. They're not for my diet, but I do really good on, you know, basically vegetables, meat, but all organic, and then using good quality oils. So getting those things out of the diet as well, and then avoiding caffeine and alcohol as much as possible. And there's a term that's more recent in the literature. It's called metabolic flexibility. And so I just want to point that out, because as I'm saying this, I could just foresee like listeners being like, I can't do all of that. Like, good for her, but that's a lot to take on, because food addictions are real. So this isn't easy. And I'm not saying like try to do what I do overnight. Just start somewhere, because all of the things that you do are cumulatively going to make an improvement. So find something that's doable, even if it's just like stop drinking out of plastic water bottles and then go from there. Or, you know, eat up what's in your pantry and then start finding healthy swaps, which we can show you some resources on how to learn what are healthy swaps as well. Start somewhere, you know?
Well, I know when my health crashed, it snowballed downhill.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when I found what worked, when I found how to really truly heal, that snowballed in the right direction.
Yeah.
So just like you say, just start somewhere. Start
Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, anything like when you're new to something, your conviction isn't super high. So you might be looking at this like, gosh, I don't know what to get rid of, or I don't know what to put my effort into. So you're not yet convinced, But then you get to somebody like me and my husband, where we teach people, we'll talk about it a little bit later, the 90-10 lifestyle, where 90% of the time or more, we're on program, eating the foods that are best for our diet and fueling ourselves with the building blocks that we need to stay high productive and keep our bodies rested and recovered and everything, but leave that room for error 10%. And that's the metabolic flexibility part. Once your body's healed and you've done this long enough, your body will give you more grace. So when you do cheat, or there's a birthday party or a wedding, or you're at somebody's house where the menu is completely out of your control, that okay, no problem. It doesn't create this entire like backpedal in your whole like health and nutrition and some kind of like major like healing crisis from it. Your body can handle that because that's not happening to it every single day.
And I do want to mention, I know people are, when you talk about cutting out gluten and cutting out bread and cutting out soft drinks and cutting out sugar and all these things, I do want to mention for our listeners that your taste buds actually reset themselves. So the food, the natural, healthy food that you are eating actually tastes really good, much better than it does when you're messing it up with sugar and artificial sweeteners and things like that.
That's very true. That's a great point.
So don't be overwhelmed by I can't give up bread or I can't give up this or that. You can just got to get a little reset going. So go ahead and tell us, Dr. Kristy, and it sounds like your husband both do the online coaching.
We do, yes. Yeah.
So tell us about it. 90-10 lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, we have I'm sitting in the downstairs of my brick and mortar, my private practice, Health by Design. And I moved from New York to Jacksonville. And so this started it. People were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're leaving. We're going to miss you. Who are we going to see? Who's going to take your place? And I've, been working with a lot of people remotely, but my tool is muscle testing. So like, if I can't push on their arm, I'm kind of like, oh, this is so frustrating. So we kind of have been convicted to help more people outside of Jacksonville with our methods. And there's a lot, even if you can't get into a nutrition response testing practitioner, that as you learn and become empowered with these methods, that you can start to take empowerment over your health and learn how to do something sustainable. So we created the 90-10 lifestyle, and it's an online coaching program. This is my husband. The way he explains it is so funny. He says, for 8 months, the people who helped us write this course and coaching program literally like sucked everything that I know out of my brain and like put it into the course. So like, I can't even begin to tell you how many resources and downloadables. There's shopping lists and how to read labels. There's stuff about diet and nutrition, chemicals, and how to change things around in your house. And it's a self-taught, do it at your own pace in the comfort of your own home program. So it's the next best thing if you're not in our local area to learn these methods. And it leads you through 3 phases of eating. Teaches you how to gradiently and slowly get the carbs and some of the processed chemical foods out, and then start exploring different ways of eating while tracking, kind of scientifically tracking how you respond and how your symptoms respond to how you're eating, so that ultimately by the end of the program, what diet and method of eating is best for you. Because some people do great on keto. Some people, it's not for their bodies. Some people do better on a plant-based, some people want to start building their way up to intermittent fasting, but that's not a great starting place. You've got to work up to it. So we help you, lead you through all these different exploratory situations so that ultimately you can learn how your body does best, then set you up for, sustainable ongoing success after the, it's like a 12-week program.
Okay, awesome. That sounds really exciting. And people can find that from your website, which is Health by Design. Is it .com?
Yeah, it's Health by Design and then FL for Florida,
Okay.
healthbydesignfl.com for the brick and mortar practice, but you still can tap into like the patient resources. That's free for everybody. So you can go to that. But the online program, if you're interested more in that and want to learn about it, it's 9010lifestyle.com. So there's two
Okay.
websites.
And I'll put a link to both of those
That'd be great.
in the podcast description. Okay. So your quality of life changed dramatically.
Yeah.
So you went from not even being able to continue in school
Right.
to now helping tons of people.
Yeah, thousands of patients we've helped. And I'm like the Energizer Bunny. My husband's so funny. He just started helping at the practice after, years. I finally roped him in to help and do some of the coaching. And now I know exactly.
Good
But now
job.
he sees how hard I work and how I'm on my feet and I talk nonstop all day long. And he's just been doing it for a year, 2 days a week. And he's like, I don't know how you do it. So now I'm like the Energizer Bunny. Like, you can't stop me. Like, I'm so passionate about this field that like I don't want to stop. I'm energized by the success stories that come through and the life transformations that come through. It's just, I don't know. We live in this like imaginary bubble where people get well and people with chronic health diseases overcome them, and we just really are so convicted. My conviction is so high because I've witnessed the healing potential of the body for the last 18 years. So I just tell patients, like, you just met the most stubborn Italian doctor in Jacksonville. Like, we are not giving up on you. We are going to fix this.
Yes, because it can be fixed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you see it. So it is exciting. I know after a podcast interview, once I've heard somebody's story and how they were healed naturally, I literally am like, want to go outside and do cartwheels. Like
It's so
and
exciting.
sometimes I do because it's just like, it's amazing. The way the body works and the way it heals itself is
Yeah.
literally just amazing.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. It really gets us fired up because
Well, that's why we call it Health by Design. That's why we named the practice Health by Design, because we know we are created by our creator, intelligently and miraculously designed with intact everything our body needs to fully express optimal health and well-being. And so when you are not in a state of optimal health and well-being, there's something out of balance. And I love the adage that says that like really disease only occurs when you get out of balance with your environment. And so all these things that we talked about, food, chemicals, heavy metals, and there's even more, just emotional stress, 5G, all the craziness in the world, that could be an interference. And once you learn how to get the interference out and handle it properly, and then feed and nurture and restore the body and build up your reserves, your adaptability to stress improves. So even though all the stressors and responsibility and everything might not go away, your body's ability to tolerate that without those outside circumstances being a detriment to your well-being, your tolerance builds up, which is amazing.
yes, yes. Okay, so you've given us so much encouragement, so much hope. I want to ask you as kind of a last question. It's kind of two parts. So like if somebody is suffering with a chronic illness or endometriosis or PCOS, or, I feel like we just keep adding on new diseases. Like what would you say to them? How would you encourage them? And where would you recommend that somebody start who this is foreign to?
Yeah. Well, you have to start someplace. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it comes from failing through the traditional methods, which hurts me. It hurts my heart because I just want to get out there and scream to everybody, like, alternative medicine can be your first resort. It doesn't have to be your last resort. It can be your first stop. So, getting in touch with natural health practitioners, reading testimonials about the body's incredible, like athletes and people that, adrenaline like lift buses off of people because they didn't even know their body could do that, or overcomers, like reading stories of overcoming, listening to your podcast and story after story after story. On our site we try to put testimonials because like people don't want to hear from me how great my methods work. They want to hear from people just like them who have been through it. But you do have to advocate for yourself. And I know that's hard when you're down and out and you don't feel good and you don't have energy. But I don't know, it just takes a certain amount of tolerance to say, like, my life is worth it. I'm going to get over this. I'm going to find somebody. I'm going to find a way or a method. Just don't accept no for an answer, because the body does heal. We're going to put a link to nutrition response testing practitioners in your area. So if you want to learn more and find a practitioner who does what I do or what Robin's doctor does, there's a network of people all across the country that do this kind of work. So I don't know anything that works better. Or if you don't have a nutrition response testing practitioner in your area, get with a functional medicine doctor. There's amazing people that are thinking holistically, that are healing the body. And then do your research, look at their reviews, read their website, look at testimonials.
And I do feel like it's important for people to do their research today, because I do feel like there is some kind of wacky stuff going on, and people who maybe aren't certified in anything or aren't trained. So the nutritional response testing, that is not like some spiritual new age method. It is your body's response. It's science-based.
It's actually physics.
It's physics.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of training, and you trained with is it Dr. Yulin? Is that how you say his name?
Yep.
Yes. And so there's a lot of training that goes in. So this is not something experimental. It is just something different than a lot of you may have experienced or tried in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited for people to connect with you, and I can't wait to hear their story. So when people listen to this podcast, Dr. Kristy, and they come to you and they get healing, you send them back to me so we can share their story.
Oh, yes. You can interview them. Awesome. Yes. I love it. You bet.
Yes, because that's the key, is that we need to let each other know this is what's worked, because things are working. This is working, and traditional medicine for well care is not working. It's great for emergency care, but it's not working for well care. And what you are doing is working. So I'm very appreciative to you for being on the podcast, and for I have the utmost respect for the work that you do, and for all that you, even though you feel like the Energizer Bunny, I know that you pour your heart and soul into your clients, into empowering them. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Of course. Thank you, guys. And I hope, we always say, like, if it helps one person or empowers one person, then it's worth it. So thank you. This is an awesome platform. I think it's wonderful to share positive news. We need to fill each other's hearts and spirits and souls with what could be and what's, working, and maybe turn off the mainstream once in a while, if not always.
Yes. Yes. I've cut out news, and I turned it on the other day. My husband was watching something, and so I watched it for a minute, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, turn
it off!" Right? That's how I'm like, turn it off.
I can't handling that. There's nothing I can do about that.
I know.
So I'm not. I'm not going there. But this is something we want to empower you, so you can do something about your health. So do not be discouraged. Take heart and hope in how God created you, because He created you to heal, and He created you to have an abundant life. And so I really want you listeners to hear that, because it's the truth. It's the truth of God's word. It's the truth in the way your body works. It's just the truth. So thank
Amen.
you, Dr. Kristy, and
You're welcome.
I appreciate you so much. We'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Sounds good. Thanks everybody for listening.